Welcome to 5 Minutes of Zen, episode 7. Let's start the clock. Okay. One of the terms that I've used the last couple of videos was self-realization. Now, some of you that might do some reading in Buddhism might say, wait a minute. In Buddhism, there is no concept, well, there's a concept of self, but they deny a self. In fact, a very major doctrine point in Buddhism is an Atman. An Atman means no self. An Atman in Hinduism is a self. And Hinduism does teach self-realization, that your Atman is the same thing as Brahman. And Brahman is that ultimate consciousness, which they call Satchidananda, being, consciousness, bliss. In Buddhism, this is not something that they are searching for. They are not searching for a individual or even universal self. So when I talk about self-realization, the Buddhists watching this might say, hey, wait a minute, that isn't a Zen term. So let me contextualize this. It can be a term if we understand what we mean by self-realization. So whether we're talking about the Hindu version of self-realization, which is realization of Brahman, or a Buddhist version of self-realization in which you are realizing that there is no self, an Atman, meaning not self. What that means is when you deconstruct what you think you are and you go beyond the ego, which is that part of your mental working that gives you an identity, a name, a personality, an occupation, all of these things that we usually talk about as a self-description. When you move beyond that, you could say that that is self-realization, realizing your true self, that there isn't a particular thing. Let's put this in Western context. In dualistic theism, that would be worshiping a god like in the Bible, or Judaism, or Islam. They have this concept of a duality, that God has created you and that you have an everlasting soul. We're not even going near that in this. What we're talking about with self-realization is realizing perhaps more what the self is not, a subtraction of all of these ideas and concepts that we have been creating, that we consider to be ourself. When we realize our true self, we get into the nature of what we truly are. And that isn't so different in Buddhism and Hinduism when we get to those very, very refined and esoteric levels. What we're doing is something similar to peeling back an onion. And the reason the onion is used in this analogy is because it has no core, it has no pit or center. When you keep peeling and keep peeling and keep peeling, there's nothing at the heart of that. You're not going to come to some seed. And it's because what you get to is just this idea of emptiness. And in Buddhism, that's a very important word. Emptiness is called sunya, the void. And the reason it's called that is not because there's nothing, but because there isn't a particular thing. There are no more particulars once you reach sunya. At sunya, at this level of the void, is that vast infinite emptiness from which everything can occur. But these everythings are things that come and go, just like your thoughts and concepts, just like every molecule in this universe which pops into existence and then leaves existence. If you want some fun reading, you could read a little bit of quantum physics and find out that when we get to the nitty-gritty of the atom, what we find are subatomic particles, which are then even further looked at as probabilities, which pop into existence, pop out of existence, pop back into existence and out of existence. This constant flux of finite material, which appears to be this great material universe that has been here a very long time, yet its parts pop into and out of existence so rapidly you couldn't quite even conceive of it. So when we are looking for this self-realization, what we're finding is your true self isn't a thing. It isn't something separated from everything else. You start to move into that void, into that sunya. And I just wanted to clarify that in this episode so that somebody doesn't get you wrong, or that you don't get me wrong when I talk about self-realization. So that's our 5 minutes, and we'll see you next time.